Hogsty.
Hey everybody, and happy Christmas Eve to you. This is Alex from the Hogsty. Full complement with me as we go into this week against the Panthers. Steve and Jamal here with me. We got a jam-packed show, so no time for dilly-dallying and talking about the weather, guys, because there's just too much to talk about in Washington.
We can talk about music for 20 minutes.
Yeah, we just did. And I wanted to talk about my kitchen remodel, which would just make Steve want to die. But we won't do that.
I have something else to do that day.
Yes.
Unless you talk about microwaves, then he'll stick around.
No, that's all I know.
Yeah,
that's all.
Actually,
I
am buying a new microwave. I might talk to you about that later.
I'm trying to cook a little more, people, so it's amazingly enough.
Yeah, but we got way too much to talk about here with the team, guys. We kind of previewed it in our last show that this big story came out about Dan Snyder and the lawsuit. We didn't expect to have another story about Dwayne Haskins and breaking COVID protocols, and he is no longer captain of the team. He's been fined and all this stuff. We got a lot to talk about with those two stories, and we got to cover the Panthers. So I'm going to start off chronologically, though. Let's talk about this Dan Snyder story, guys.
Okay.
Dan Snyder, we know there's the lawsuit between him and the other owners. We know that they're fighting this out in the media a little bit, and we know this because when a bad story comes out about Dan Snyder in one paper, like half a day later, something else comes out in the other papers from his side, or vice versa. And over the weekend, we had kind of that happen. First, it was leaked that Dan Snyder had gotten some texts, and I believe this was in the Post. They got a copy of these texts that the lawyer for Shar and Smith and all them sent to Dan Snyder, threatening to put out more dirt on Dan Snyder, he was like, it's not stuff that's been in the media. He's got real dirt, and so he sent that text to Snyder at some point, and that got leaked to the Post. So that was one story. But then a bigger bombshell came out, or not really bombshell. We knew there was a settlement back in 2009, and no one knew what it was. But it got leaked in the New York Times, I believe, or maybe it was the New York Post. It was a New York paper.
I think it was the Times.
Yeah, New York Times. It got leaked there that settlement for $1.6 million, I believe.
I think it was 1.9.
1.9. It was to hush up a possible sex scandal where Dan Snyder himself was being accused of sexual harassment. So those were the two big stories regarding Dan Snyder and the lawsuits. Steve, I'm sure you've kind of perused all this, and, although we can't get copies of the documents because settlements are sealed, right. You have a good understanding of what this would mean.
Okay, so let me start with the text. I doubt the veracity of this story right off the top, and the reason why I do is that Dwight Schar's lawyer should never, ever text Dan Snyder for any reason. It's a major ethical violation to do so. He could lose his license doing that. I tend to doubt that is actually true, or maybe those texts were sent to to Snyder's attorneys. Maybe you could do that, but I mean, you could get sanctioned and lose your license for doing something like that, particularly threatening stuff. I just really doubt that any attorney would ever do that. So right off the top of my head, I think that is a total lie. I could be wrong. Maybe this lawyer's a complete and utter sleazebag. Lord knows there's enough sleazebag laws, but
especially
I doubt
in this area.
Yeah, right, everywhere. But I just tend to doubt it right off the top because of that. But let's get to the bigger story, which is the Dan Snyder sexual harassment suit. I just want to tell everybody, you can't put any stock whatsoever into a settlement. Okay, people settle. I have settled lawsuits. A lot of lawsuits for a variety of reasons, and primarily it revolves around people just not wanting the hassle of litigation, or some insurance company wants to get rid of the lawsuit because they don't want to fight it. In this case, Dan Snyder would have a very, very strong motivation to settle it immediately because sexual harassment is what got Jerry Richardson fired from his ownership of the Carolina Panthers. It's the one of the very few things, that and racism are probably the two things that can get the NFL, that can cause the NFL to make Dan Snyder go away. So he would have a strong motivation to settle the lawsuit immediately. It could be total BS. It could be complete and total lie. We really don't even know what the allegations are. You cannot read anything into the fact that he settled a lawsuit at all. It means absolutely nothing whatsoever. That's my initial thought.
Sure. Jamal, your thoughts on the fact that we now know that, if nothing less, with all the other stuff that's going on with this investigation, it doesn't surprise me that there would be other lawsuits like this in the past.
So
I'm surprised there's not more. Frankly, that's my.
Nah, I wouldn't. You got your point across. I was kind of hesitant when you were talking. I was kind of hesitant to say, don't be quick to say we know anything, because we don't know nothing right now. Given that this whole investigation is larger than we can imagine, and I wish, before me speaking this, I wish I actually pulled it up. I'm gonna look for it after I say this, but this thing is so messy. And somebody said something earlier today, and I was just casually listening to radio, and I don't know if he was a fan or just a person who likes sports radio and was in the DC area, but he was like, everything that's going on in the media between all these guys, these owners, and the minority owner, and their attorney, like, it all sounds like a bunch of bad people doing bad things, and like everybody's just finding ways to try and keep things under wraps, but also they hate each other, by the way, and they're just trying to get out of business with each other, specifically the minority owners trying to get out of business with Dan. And I think that's where it came. That's what it's come down to. And also the thing that I was going to mention, that I end up looking for it for more concrete information, but from what I heard, there's a lawsuit currently out on the person who was conducting the investigation, or that is conducting the investigation. I think Beth Wilkinson.
I can explain this, Jamal.
Okay.
What's going on here is that recall that she was originally hired by Dan Snyder to investigate Dan Snyder. Everybody who knows anything about legal maneuvering knew that was never going to last. And so the NFL retained her directly. And so now she is investigating the Washington franchise, where the lawsuit is this. The old Dan Snyder settlement of the sexual harassment claim, the records were sealed. She filed a lawsuit to get the records unsealed as a part of her investigation. And the Washington Post is a part of that too, because they're trying to get it unsealed. But what the lawsuit involving her is her trying to get those records as a part of her investigation into the sexual harassment culture in Washington. That's what that's about.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you for clearing that up, because I'm glad. My concern was that what I had saw wasn't fully developed, and it was an ongoing story, but that kind of explains the nature of the actual lawsuit that's going on with them, between Beth and the team. All right, so yeah, like that's just where I'm getting at in terms of it just being a little messy for me. If you want to know my thoughts, is like, when it comes to things like this, I'm probably the most patient guy possible, and Dan Snyder really isn't going to come away with this clean no matter how hard he tries, because it's either going to reflect on what he's done in the past, or the levels in which he's taken to prevent things from coming out, or just his overall nature of his tenure here in Washington. It's regardless of what he does, he's not going to come away clean. But I also won't be surprised if there's people, because I've seen some people today actually, defending him and standing up for him, which is kind of shockingly to say, because these are fans of the team who should be aware of the things that he's done over 20 years. But it's just hard for him to come out of this clean, regardless of what the legal outcome of this is.
Yeah, I'm not really going to defend Dan Snyder per se, but what I will say is that people like him, meaning very wealthy people in high-profile positions, get sued for all kinds of stuff all the time, and most of it is total BS. It's a lot of it is just people trying to cash in a payday. It happens, like, for example, to musicians all the time. We were talking about musicians before the show. They get sued constantly for copyright violations and all sorts of stuff. Most of the time, it's nonsense. And so it doesn't surprise me that someone would sue Dan Snyder. Maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. But you can't, it's just, without knowing the facts and reading the file, it's really impossible, and I strongly urge everybody out there to not read anything into the fact that there was a lawsuit out there at all, because it could just as easily be some money grubber as it could somebody with a legitimate complaint. We will never know. In the settlement, the fact that he settled it means absolutely nothing, especially for $1.9 million, which is chump change to him.
So one last question, and then we'll switch to the Dwayne Haskins topic, which is probably more pressing to a lot of fans. So, given the Wilkerson suit to kind of get these unsealed, Steve, do you think she will get that unsealed for her investigation? And, I mean, I think it's two separate questions of, should she be able to see it so she can do her investigation thoroughly, and will she be able to?
Well, I definitely don't think she should. I mean, there's a reason files are sealed. There's a reason the court seals files. Sure. and there are interests beyond just Dan Snyder at play here. There's the plaintiff, we don't know. Again, we don't know anything about the facts of the case, but if this is a legitimate incident, she has legitimate privacy issues, that the NFL doesn't need to know anything about. And so, no, I don't think the record should be unsealed. Will it be unsealed? I mean, hard to say. The NFL is the 8 million pound gorilla out there, so they tend to get what they want in court a lot of times. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if she got it, but I'm strongly against unsealing records about cases like that for privacy reasons.
Yeah, and I understand that. I mean,
because somebody's going to put it together, even if they redacted the name. Right. Eventually, the Post or somebody's going to put it together. Yeah, it's not that hard to figure it out.
I would assume in a sealed records case, if you can get all parties to agree to unseal them, that's a different story.
Well, sure, but what motivation would she have to unseal them?
She still hates Dan Snyder?
Well, and the part of the settlement agreement is that she will never agree to that either, by the way. I mean, They can't just go to her individually and say, unseal this, agree to this, because she's prevented from doing so in the settlement agreement.
Got it. Okay, well, let's change topics, talk about this Haskins story. It all started with
Jamal's dog is going crazy, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I can hear that there.
There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, we understand. There's nothing you can do about the dog. So when it comes to this Haskins story that kind of broke yesterday, which would be Tuesday for those listening, and late Monday, it seems like the story is this. After the game Sunday, post went out on Instagram showing Haskins in a club of some sort with some women, and then a second post of a bunch of women all wearing Dwayne Haskins jerseys. It looks like at a house, maybe his house, I don't know. And in the pictures, you can see Dwayne Haskins. So at first, the people who saw it claimed that Haskins was at a strip club after the game. Some people are saying it was Saturday night. Some people saying Sunday night. Not enough information there. Haskins has come out and now said it was his girlfriend's birthday party, and it was after the game Sunday. And I think that does matter. If it was Saturday night, I'd be pretty pissed off that your starting quarterback's out partying before a game. But I'm less annoyed about that in general. The bigger issue people seem to care about is that he's breaking the NFL's COVID protocols in terms of, not being in large crowds and things like that. So now it's kind of blown up. Haskins is lost his team captaincy. He's being fined by the team, and people are calling for him to get fired for it.
That's
but,
ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's a bit much, especially because we're almost at the end of the season anyway.
Let me guess. The people in our comment section are saying this.
No, I didn't see any of that in the comment section. No.
So, first of all, I read this story in ESPN and The Athletic, so I don't know about whatever's going on Twitter about it. But if this is all just mask shaming, you could miss me with that. I really couldn't care less about that. I think the masks are 90% make people feel good anyway. But if the bigger issue to me is, number one, it's a bad look. He's not the first. He's not the first one, and he's not the last player in football, baseball, basketball to go out partying after a loss. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. It rubs people wrong, but they have lives, and it's not what I would do, but it doesn't really bother me that much. But to me, the issue is if he's violated a team rule, he should know better. Right. If there is a team rule and the NFL's COVID protocol requires certain things with regard to players being in crowds and he knowingly violated it, he should be punished. Now, the CBA allows players to be fined by the teams, but there's not some sort of increased discipline beyond that in the CBA that teams can do. They could cut him, but they can't cut him, okay? I did look at Haskins' contract. They could, if they cut him, they could lose money this year. If they cut him next year, they'll lose money next year. The only thing they can really do is trade him next year,
right,
as a post-June 1 trade. That's it. So there's no, unless they wanted to take a massive hit, there's no cutting Dwayne Haskins, nor should he be cut for this. I think it's a bad look and it's stupid, and it doesn't really reflect well on him. But on the other hand, a birthday party at your girlfriend's house is a vast difference of going to some strip club somewhere also. So I have a much less of a problem with him at the girlfriend's house or whatever.
It was a party at a club. It was definitely a club that he was at.
Okay.
And then later at somebody's house, it looked like.
That's
the
my
one
thought.
weird thing to me, and this is where his story makes a little less sense. This is a birthday party for your girlfriend, yet why is everyone wearing your jersey at her birthday party? Like, that's a little weird.
Because he's the star, that's why.
I guess.
Look, here's I can sum it up for my thoughts. It's stupid. He should probably be disciplined. I don't really care that much. That's my thought.
I don't think he should be for this incident alone. I don't think he should be necessarily cut or suspended for this incident, but I think the cumulative mistakes that he's made in terms of professionalism and maturity, I think that is where he ultimately meets his fate in terms of his time here in Washington. I said earlier, even when it first happened back in, or when I first saw the picture, excuse me. So it happened Sunday, but I probably saw it on Monday. Jesus Christ, Dakota. So I saw it probably Monday, and during that time, I'm like, I really didn't have a problem with it. The issue is that he's not wearing a mask. And I paid no mind to it. I actually even said to people who were trying their best, and I still think that's wrong. Like, sometimes, like, you can comment on something that's obviously made public. It's not your fault that it's made public. But to go to the lengths in which some people did to alert his superiors, I don't respect that, and I still don't respect that. With that being said,
amen.
Snitching, as you
yes, absolutely.
I totally agree with you, Jamal.
That's exactly what Alex said. I just said it in a more polite way. It's just straight down to it, like, you're snitching, and it's really it's no place for that. You're a grown ass man, grown ass woman doing something like that, and it's really messing with somebody's livelihood. But with that being said, Haskins is a grown man. He's capable of making his own decisions. Where he needs to take accountability in terms of his amount of mistakes is where he's not playing good on the field in a consistent effort. And then on top of that, you've made a few mistakes that's put people, like, COVID has become life and death. especially for certain people on your team. This is not just Ron Rivera. There are probably other people who are high risk that is showing up to work on a daily basis, and Dwayne Haskins can come in contact with them. This isn't the first time that he's did it. It's the second time that he's done it in terms of breaking COVID protocol. And I think that mistakes on top of the item that got him benched after the Ravens game, like these things add up. And it's hard for me to sit here and say that the juice is worth the squeeze when it comes to Haskins. I really see no upside. And it's like, that's where my tune changed, because the acting itself was selfish, because even though the event and the idea of the event is not bad, the context surrounding it, and then what you did it for, like you had no regard for your coaches, you had no regard for the team, who some people who may not be on this team next year, they're fighting for a chance to contribute something meaningful to their career post Washington. They want to make it to a playoff. They want some spotlight on them. They're trying to get an extension. And then you have people, the same thing with coaches who may be trying to get a promotion. Obviously, they're not thinking forward like that to that degree, but they want to make sure that they put their best foot forward and contribute to something meaningful. And then you have the people who you risk getting them in trouble in terms of their health because you wanted to have fun or you couldn't tell your girlfriend no. Like that's where it's like all these things accumulate, and that one decision to, in this moment where you're going for a playoff push and Alex may not even be healthy next week, you're endangering a lot of people and their livelihood because you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that there's there are specific rules of player conduct this year with regard to COVID-19, and he clearly broke it. Right. He should have known better, and it was a dumb thing to do.
There are team rules and league rules that he clearly violated.
Right.
And I'm actually...
No, and to be honest, I didn't know he was even a captain still. That was awful.
Yeah. They never took that away from him, even after he got benched, which is a little weird. It was... I'm assuming that was done by Rivera, stripping him of that. That was kind of his punishment. And, a $40,000 fine is pretty damn painful. I don't care how much money you're making. That's not a check you want to write,
No, I mean, it was dumb, but if there's people out there calling for him to be cut and all that, that's just crazy. Okay, stop it.
I think it seals the deal in terms of him probably not being back next year.
I think that...
Yeah, I don't think he'll be back next year.
I don't think he was going to be back next year before this. I think NFL teams have proven that they will put up with literally almost anything if you have talent and can play. Ben Roethlisberger got accused of rape multiple times. Josh Gordon is a drug addict. Who's the guy who Dante Stallworth killed somebody? NFL teams will put up with damn near anything if you are a good player, and Dwayne hadn't proved that. Yeah,
right. If you're not a good player, they ain't going to put up with crap.
No, look at Johnny Manziel was gone, and it's because he sucked.
Although he got probably more chances than I thought he should, frankly.
He was a first-round pick.
Yeah,
but if Manziel could really play, no, he was a first-round pick. If Manziel could really play, I guarantee he'd still be in the league, cocaine or no cocaine or whatever he was doing.
He was doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, Manziel, for the short season he lived, he got an abundance of finishes. He got plenty of opportunities to try and correct his behavior, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So that's my thought is Dwayne's fate was sealed. To be honest, I think Dwayne's fate was sealed in the offseason.
Probably. I don't think he ever had a great chance, but I think it's just all these little mistakes, it keeps going downhill.
By the way, the other COVID protocol thing was very minor. He made a reservation for a friend at a hotel is what the other violation was. So that's barely a violation.
Yes, it was minor. I agree, and I just think I know you're, and I agree. So it's nothing there, but I think when you break protocol, regardless, because you got to think about 52 other people, or not even including the practice squad. I don't know the numbers. 52 other people did not break protocol, and then you look throughout the league, and then there are people who got cut for violations, something similar to that. Like a dude in Seattle, he got his girl. He tried to bring his girlfriend in the hotel, and he got kicked out. And he's a practice squad guy. He got kicked out for bringing his girlfriend in. I would consider that a person. I mean, it depends on how long y'all been together, but still, like in the context of quote unquote family member, I would consider that a family member. Like that's somebody that like he brought in somebody where a person in Seattle got cut for doing. Like it's the same thing, and I'm not saying that the other guy should have got cut or that Dwayne should have got cut. But when you deal with like things to this degree, and you're dealing with a pandemic and a virus, it's just hard, man.
It's just, I mean, I think Dwayne needs to remember that it's bigger than just you, man.
Yeah.
Look at what the fact that the Ravens had a problem caused a whole bunch of dominoes that almost caused the whole season to fall apart.
Yeah, and the Ravens' problem was basically one knucklehead
did something similar to what Dwayne did, something along those lines, and that's what happens, and it caused a whole bunch of dominoes. The same thing happened in Major League Baseball. The Cardinals almost ruined it for everybody.
Sure.
So that's where it comes in. Now it looks like this isn't going to be a problem, in terms of big picture. So that's good, but I just think this is Dwayne being a knucklehead. At the end, fine him, strip his captaincy, slap him with a wet noodle or whatever, because Ron Rivera doesn't want him anyway,
Yeah. Ron Rivera wants him for one more week so Alex Smith can get healthy. That's how long Ron Rivera really
I'm about to say he clearly moved on, and I'm not sure if he quote unquote moved on, because I feel like this is probably one of the seasons where he's just trying to get this over with. Like he's trying to enjoy it. And make something of his first year, but he just wants this over with because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dakota,
okay, guys. We should
sit down.
We should move on.
Sorry, I apologize in advance. She's attacking me, and I don't know how to mute this thing. Go ahead.
I think Dakota had a very serious issue with our Dwayne Haskins discussion. Is what I think.
Yeah, she was
he
like,
was
"Bro,
attacking that
shut
squeaky
up."
toy like. Yeah.
She was telling all of us to shut up and change the subject.
Yeah. All right. Well, she's right. We should talk about this game we got against the Panthers, because here's the thing, guys. Move to 4:00 game. It's very likely we will go into this game knowing if Washington wins, they're in. Because if the Giants lose and Washington wins, then we can take the whole division.
Ravens, so they're an underdog.
Yeah. Yes, and we at least have an even shot, I think, against the Panthers here. Some health stuff. Alex Smith still not fully practicing yet. He was doing some things, I heard, more than last week, but not, taking reps or anything. So Haskins took most of the reps. I heard that Gibson is back in, and it looks like he'll be able to play.
He was limited on Wednesday. I've got
but I'm talking about practicing. Limited. He was participating a lot, is what they were saying.
Yeah, he was not listed as full practice, so he's not fully healthy yet.
No, and on the other side, McCaffrey is pretty doubtful, is what they're saying on
I never thought McCaffrey's got a very serious thigh injury. It's been going on for 2 months. I never
right, but they were hoping to get him back for 1 or 2 games.
Yeah. Brian Burns is out with a knee problem.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's out. Russell Okung didn't practice on Wednesday. The Panthers actually have some pretty big injury problems right now.
Right.
And our side, by the other one, since we're doing injuries, Cole Holcomb, concussion, so you got to think he's probably out.
Oh,
and then
I
Terry
didn't realize
McLaurin
this was, it's going to be that bad.
And then Terry McLaurin ankle didn't practice Wednesday either.
Right. McLaurin's been on the practice or the injured list for like the whole season for minor stuff.
By the way,
yeah,
congrats to Chase Young and who was the other? Brandon Scherf on their Pro Bowl on their Pro Bowl selections.
Yeah, good for them. I think Montez Sweat got gypped on not getting in, frankly.
If Young was in, Sweat should have been in. I think he's been better.
Frank,
at least statistically, for sure. Dakota, move, man. Stop. But
not even statistically, Sweat has met the eyeball test with his ability to bat down balls and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I meant because the Pro Bowl is a different beast, man. People stat watch and then pick their favorites too. Like that's why Chase Young got in over Montez Sweat. He's the bigger name. Oh yeah.
We all know it's popularity first, big numbers second, and because like the Giants tight end got in and like he's terrible. Somehow he's in.
I mean, the other two that would have been possibilities for Washington were Tressway and Terry McLaurin.
Right.
I looked at the numbers, and numbers-wise, neither one of them deserved it. So, I mean, Terry's got all the talent in the world.
I'm about to say, those last two
player.
games for Terry hurt him. Or the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So I forgot about the
Terry's
Pittsburgh.
about, if you take a wag at his numbers where he ranks, he's about 10, ranked about 10, and that's really not, that's kind of outside.
Just outside edge.
And Tress has got a couple punters that are ahead of him in yardage and stuff like that. So it's probably fair.
Yeah. I mean, punters are always kind of tricky. You know, like the numbers we look at sometimes aren't quite what you should look at, but I won't get into that. Let's talk about this game. The Panthers and the football team here kind of in the same boat. They're both, new coaching staffs trying to rebuild a roster here and there. Few pieces, but definitely neither team has a full, fully built offense or defense, one that you'd, love. I would say the Panthers are a little bit further on their construction of that offense, but without McCaffrey, they're obviously hurting. Whereas Washington's the opposite side, and they're further along on their defense. But it's going to be an interesting game in that both these teams are kind of in that same boat in my mind, where they're trying to build for the future, not necessarily for the present.
If you in our game preview will be up either Friday or Thursday night, depending on how I feel, because it's Christmas Day on Friday. The Panthers are the definition of mediocre in terms of stats, but the one place where I think they have the advantage is their quarterback, Bridgewater.
Yeah, they have
he's
a decent
the best quarterback. Yeah, he's better than anybody on Washington's roster. I like Teddy Bridgewater. He has put up some decent numbers this year.
They have 2 1,000-yard receivers, right?
I'm getting to that. Yeah, they do. Bridgewater's got a completion rate of almost 70%. 95 quarterback rating of 95. Our quarterbacks are down in the 70s. So I think they have an advantage. Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, terrible. Right, horrible. And Bridgewater probably he's not as athletic as he used to be before he had that devastating knee injury, but he can still move around and run a little bit. But and so Alex mentioned it. They've the Panthers got 2 good receivers here. They got Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Now DJ Moore is averaging almost 19 yards per catch.
So he's
a second in the NFL.
Threat there,
True big time deep threat, and both of them have over 1,000 yards. They are the offense along with Curtis Samuel, who the third receiver, but it's really those 2 guys. Right. So that's a threat. They aren't really that much of a run threat anymore like they were in years past.
No.
So I think the X factor is Bridgewater to DJ Moore. I think that's because what has Washington been bad at? Giving up big plays. Who's the ultimate big play weapon? Moore.
Yeah. And if we're going to talk about their passing game, I think it's worth noting that even without Christian McCaffrey, the guy they've kind of replaced him with, they still try and do a lot of that passing out of the backfield with him because he's got a couple hundred yards receiving their backup running back, I believe. I think they tried to keep their philosophy going there, which, is interesting to me, partly because obviously I've watched a lot of Matt Rule coaching, and he is not a pass-first guy. He is a run-heavy... Matt
Rule was from Temple, right?
Yeah. He was Temple's coach for like 5 years. So I watched a lot of him coaching, and he's traditionally been more of a run it on first and second down, and then run it some more, and then run it some more after that, and then do a play-action pass here and there,
And the guy you're talking about is Mike Davis, the running back, by the way.
Right.
And he's,
decent numbers.
He's decent numbers. He's averaging 4.1 yards per attempt. Look, Carolina is not doing anything crazy. It's a very traditional offense. They're a run-first offense. They use the run to set up play action, to go deep. It's not anything Washington hasn't seen before. With Washington, it's just a matter of execution. Right. They do have some talent on the offensive line. Russell Okung, former first-round pick, should be that's a marquee matchup. Okung versus Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
Good matchup to watch. But with Washington, it's just a matter of execution in the defensive backfield, primarily, I think, this week.
I think it's that and also pressuring Bridgewater. As you said, he can't run like he used to, and he was never a mobile guy to begin with. Like, he could get it done, but he's definitely more of a traditional pocket guy.
Yeah, he's not Lamar Jackson.
No. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Aaron Rodgers even, he's a, stand in the pocket. Maybe he'll scramble just to get some yards if you open up a hole. So I think it's going to be a lot of, can this D-line get pressure, kind of stuff. That's going to be big too.
I think collectively, with the way the Panthers and Washington are set up, if you guys think about how Washington was, what was it? The 2 Giants games and the Lions game. That's 3 L's. What are we right now? 6 and 7? 6 and 8?
6 and 8.
Yeah, 6 and 8. You take away 3 of those L's and make us 9 and 5. I think. I think that's it. 9 and 5. Like, what that possible? Like, because I'm getting to the point that both teams are playing well, and the fact that Washington are a couple points away and a couple mistakes away from being 9 and 5. Carolina had that same opportunity throughout the course of their season, except for their 4 and 9. And with that being said, you have 2 teams that's in terms of their competitiveness and being able to show up throughout the season, like they're there. Carolina isn't a soft team, and I think what you guys are all saying, is no need for me to repeat that, which is why I'm bringing this angle. They're good on each side of the ball. They have their goods and their bads, but you're talking about a team who is just as consistently inconsistent as us. But they're good. Like they're not a 1-15 Jets type of team or Jaguars where they're going to lose, but how much are they going to lose by? The Panthers are, they can beat us. Like, this is how good they are. And I think that's one thing that people are going to have to pay attention to with this team, because you're not going to get any type of cakewalk. We say all we need is one more game, but these last 2 games is going to be toughest to get 1 W. And I think that this is one against the Panthers where it's everybody's going to have to show up. And I think the defensive line, the side of the ball where Washington is going to make a name for itself, if this is when we need them most. This is when we need them most. And if they're not going to be able to show up in this game, then truth be told, I'm not making a drastic statement here. I'm just saying, don't think of it as a hype beast type of comment. But if they can't show up in this game, then the concern is it don't matter who we play in the playoffs. It's not going to be as easy as we think if we were to make it out of a Week 17 game with a W.
I think that's a well stated point there, Jamal. I mean, really, you have a few elite teams in the NFL. You have 2 really bad teams this year. Usually it's 1 or 2. And then everyone else, like you're saying, it's a couple plays that decide if you're a winner or a loser. It really does come down to 4 or 5 decisions you make in 4 or 5 games that decide, are you, 9 and 7 or are you 6 and 10?
I think the Panthers are underrated. Now, they're 1 and 8 in their last 9 games.
Right.
For sure. They're 4 and 9 overall, or no, that's not right.
4 and 10.
Yeah, thank you. 4 and 10. But let's take a look at who they've played. They've played the Tom Brady Buccaneers twice.
Right.
They've played the Cardinals, which Washington also played, the Bears, the Saints, the Chiefs. Even the Vikings have turned it around. And then the Packers. So they've played a bunch of really tough teams. And they've lost a lot of games. But they've had a tough schedule, man. I think they've had a tougher schedule than Washington. Because let's be honest, Washington caught Pittsburgh at the right time. And they caught the 49ers on the downside also. Whereas these Panthers are playing teams that are, right in the middle of it. So and they played the Chiefs to a 2-point game. That's the Super Bowl champs. Washington would never do that. So I think that this is not a game that fans out there should just blow off and ignore. Because we're in first place and the Panthers are 4 and 10. This is not your average every day. This is not your daddy's 4 and 10 football team. I think
we have 2 more wins than the Panthers. Let's not pretend we're going to beat them, by 50 points.
Right. The line at the beginning of the week was -2. Washington -2. So it probably changed since then. I look it up early in the week, but still, That's it. Vegas thinks it's a close game.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Washington offense real quick. If they get, we have to. If they get Gibson back, that's going to help. I think quite a bit because we all saw the running game struggled a lot last week. Even though I think they put in some good effort, it just they were shorthanded. So that'll be a big thing to watch. The fact that Haskins is probably going to be the starter this week is probably the biggest cause for concern in terms of what this team can do.
If they can get a running game going, Dwayne Haskins has never really had much of a running game since he's been here. Even last year, Adrian Peterson wasn't what he was the year before. And this year the running game's just been an abomination, basically.
Yeah.
When Haskins has been on the field, at least. So I think that's the single biggest thing. I think that's the biggest key to the game. For Washington, it's establish a running game. I don't care what you have to do. If it's Lamar Miller, bench Peyton Barber, bench Mr. 1 yard in a cloud of dust, give Michael Warren carries. I don't know what it is. I'm not on the field with the coaches, but they need to do something. That's the biggest key to the game. If they get a running game established, that will help Dwayne Haskins tremendously because it will give him more comfort. It'll get, it's something he can rely on. Yeah. Everything is better when you can run the ball, especially with a young, struggling quarterback like Haskins.
Yeah, I think, there's no question that running the ball will help him. I think the key for Haskins' play, and the thing that killed him last week, was the untimely turnovers. Because let's be honest, if those 2 picks don't happen, you're looking at least another 3 points, maybe 6, and then 6, and you win the game. Technically,
at the very least, 6 points.
Yeah. I just think Dwayne Haskins is a little overwhelmed when he goes into games.
Yeah, I think
those decisions he's making, it just look like a guy who isn't really seeing things clearly. It's not an arm talent question with him; it's a mental thing, and it's just going to take him playing a lot to get over that if he ever can.
Well, I mean, we've talked about questionable decision making out off and on the field for him. I'm not a big Haskins guy, but I tried to defend him a lot more previously. I think I'm done with that part.
Things keep adding up with the kid,
Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing after another with him.
And they don't add up in a good way.
No.
Yeah.
So what else about the offense?
The good news is I know they have a good defensive end in Carolina, number 53.
Burns.
Yeah, Burns. Other than that, though, no one really should worry you too much.
Well, they're giving up 4.7 yards per attempt on the ground, which is bad, and that's why I say the running game is key. This is a team that even as bad a running team as Washington,
we should be able to do something.
Yeah, the non-Gibson running backs, even they should be able to do something, hopefully, against this team. And Carolina's been awful on third downs. That bodes well. That's kind of a weakness on weakness sort of thing for us. And they're giving up a lot of touchdowns in the red zone. So this is not a defense that's like, locked down, clamped down defense. And Washington hopefully should be able to break out of its shell.
Is there any word on Lamar Miller and his status? Is he going to be it was just 6 days and he's good to go type deal? Or is he...
That's what I thought.
I have not seen a thing on Lamar Miller, but I am, again, not paying attention to Twitter, so I don't know.
So because you have to elevate people to your active roster when you sign people from the practice squad, right?
You do have to elevate them,
all right.
He was on the active roster. He was just inactive last week.
Okay.
He was on the active roster. Whether they activate him or not, who knows? I think they should.
Well, and we didn't mention we also did that with a Seattle linebacker.
Yeah, Michael Kendricks.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's because Cole Holcomb's out.
So I just needed to figure that out because as much as I like McKissick and I think he needs to continue to be a 20 touch minimum guy. He's going to need some help in the run game, and I think Lamar Miller is going to give him just that. Assuming Gibson is going to be out, and
Lamar Miller has some talent.
Yeah, and all we need for him to do is get a look, Mr. 2 yards per carry guy. He's only going to get you 2 yards a carry. Like there's nothing to it other than that.
Right.
Like that's all he'll give you. But if you get Lamar Miller to average 3.5, 4 yards, you have something going with the three of them. And that's all you need from Miller is the veteran savviness, the vision that he used to have. Like, it doesn't really go away. You may not have it athletically, but your vision is going to be there. And that's all you need is that veteran guy who's proven that he can get it done. Because they're going to need some help. I'm assuming Dwayne's going to be quarterback. Dwayne's going to need as much help as he can get. Not saying that he had a terrible game last week because he didn't, but at the same time, help him out as often as possible.
I was just laughing because you're calling. You said the 2-yard per carry guy, and everybody knows exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course. hey, you know what? He's worked his way up from my 1 yard in a cloud of dust mantra. Now he's at 2
yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah, so y'all know who I'm talking about.
Take 2 steps before you fall.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm not going to say his name either. I'm gonna just keep it like that.
Yeah,
it's a good nickname. Like, he knows he has a niche. Like, he has one.
Well, I mean.
That's not a niche you want to have, though, is the problem.
Yeah.
It's not a bad niche if you're an actual fullback. I'll say that. Like, if you're like 270 pounds and a blocker usually.
Mike Sellers would probably take it.
Oh, Mike Sellers was that. That's what he did. He would get 3 touchdowns a year or something like that, and they would all be from half a yard out.
Speaking of fullbacks, now it's not about the fullback in particular, but
no.
On that fourth down, the 2-point conversion. Why didn't we just use?
Oh, you're going back to the Seattle
Why didn't
game?
we just use Logan Thomas at the center if we weren't like? There was no point of. I don't even remember what they ran at this point. It was not the best play. Not a good play. Mm-hmm. But use him as a threat to run the ball, if anything. I just don't understand it. You only need 2 yards. Peyton Barber and Logan Thomas.
Ron Rivera made a bunch of weird decisions in goal line all year long.
Yeah, yeah, and I also know this is hindsight too, so it's not even fair. It's just the fact that we had an opportunity to run the ball, in a particular. I don't know. It's just me thinking about it randomly. Logan Thomas could have definitely helped us out.
I'm with you, but it strikes me also. Do you remember back in the day when Tim Tebow went to the Eagles and they had who's the old that crazy coach they had?
Oh, you're talking about Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly, right. Chip Kelly was trying to come up with all these goal line wildcat packages for Tim Tebow, and nothing worked because it just doesn't work in the NFL. I think that's the deterrent.
Well, there's a reason the wildcat doesn't run that often.
I must say he was at his time.
Because you can do all sorts of crazy wildcat formations, and it usually gets 4 yards at most.
Right. But that's all you need for a 2-point conversion.
I can do that with a traditional running play.
Yeah. But
anyway, so defense, Carolina, you shouldn't be all that impressed. On the other hand, they've been in some wars this year, so I don't think their numbers are really as bad as they reflect. What are they bad at? They're bad at interceptions. They've only had 5 all year.
That's good for Dwayne.
They haven't had a many sacks. Outside of Burns, they don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
Right.
I already said they're bad on third downs. But I just think you got to take all that with a grain of salt, considering some of the teams they've played.
I hate to say this. Get Jeremy Sprinkle and just whichever side Burns is lining up on, put him on that side for an extra blocker. That's all you need to do. And don't put him on routes. Just help block. That's all I want from you, Jeremy Sprinkle. Just one game, help block this guy.
I mean, it's not his strength, but sure.
It's no one's strength in the tight end room right now.
That's true.
We don't have a good blocking tight end.
No.
At all.
So that would be my solution.
It's not a bad solution. I hear you. I mean, they need to do something. Because I think the less pressure Dwayne feels, the less panicked he feels, the more time he has, the better he'll see the field. The more Washington can run the ball, the more comfortable he will be. It'll give us 3rd and short instead of 3rd and long. So all those things add up. Now, if all these things go wrong, they can't run the ball. Brian Burns does, in fact, play, which is an open question, and he gets pressure on Dwayne, and he starts throwing interceptions. That's when things go wrong, and we've seen that ball game many times.
Well, I think the last point is you could say the Steelers game was a bit of a mirage, but they played well against Seattle overall. Dwayne had some issues. There were issues on offense, but this defense, I think it's fair to say the defense is gelled and is pretty darn legit at this point. You just need to get to like 24, 28 points. Just, 4 scores.
Yeah, I said it last week. I think Seattle kind of played down to their competition a little bit last week, to be honest.
A little, but I think this defense has played well for 5 or 6 straight weeks.
They have.
So, we just need a couple of scores. And, that's the question. Can Haskins get 3 touchdowns?
It's easier said than done.
I know.
When you're talking about Washington.
Yes. Washington and its no-name offense. So, anything else, guys? Or do you want to wrap up these scores?
No, I think we better wrap it up. We're already up to almost an hour now.
Yeah, I'm good on my end, man. Good.
All right, cool. All right, why don't we do final score predictions and wrap this thing up? I'm going to go ahead and go first. I'm just going to declare it for myself.
Okay.
I think, even with Haskins starting and all the nonsense going on right now, I think Washington can get a win here. And it's not going to be pretty, but I think it's going to be a 20-17 type victory, low scoring, slog it out, last second field goal win type game.
Oh man, this is for me. This is tough, and it may be the case that I'm letting the thought of the Panthers, like how they played this year, overpower like how good Washington is, or excuse me, how good they've been playing recently. I may be clouding my judgment, but I just really, I think it's going to be close. And I don't think all 4 quarters that Washington's going to win the game. But I will have them back me up when I say that I think Washington ends up winning. I think they'll find a way to win like 20-16. 24-21 type, but again, I don't think it's going to be a point where we know from quarter 1 that we will win the game. It's going to be a little rocky, something similar to what Alex said, but we may have to end up pulling off another comeback.
Yeah, I think the higher the score is, the worse off it is for Washington, because I have little faith in their offense, but I do have some faith in their defense. So I think if the score is low, that bodes well. I do think Washington's going to play well. They've played tough, at least defensively in several weeks, as Alex mentioned. So I'm going to cautiously and hopefully predict a tough, hard-fought victory by Washington, something along the lines of maybe 20-17. That might have been the same score you said, Alex.
It is. That's fine.
Yeah, but I think that's if it gets anywhere above that.
Jamal said 24-21. We're all in the same boat here.
Yeah, if it gets above that, Carolina's going to win the game. I mean, they've routinely scored 27, 27, 31 points. They can score points if they have to, and unless you're playing the sad sack Cowboys, Washington can't.
So I'll give a score because I gave 2 different scores, and I'll just be clear with mine, just so we'll have it on the record and compare. But I'll go 20-16 Washington. That was the first score I mentioned. I'll go 20-16.
Okay.
I think that means we all are saying 20 points for Washington.
Yeah.
So that's it, kids. Get rich. Bet the over for Washington.
Yeah, Washington gets 20 points, and we're at what would that be? 16.6 points average for the Carolina.
The line was Washington -2, so we're saying Washington will cover.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Exactly. All right, guys, that should wrap it up. Both of you, I hope you guys have a happy Christmas or Merry Christmas. Happy, Hanukkah's over, so I don't know what other people are celebrating.
Well, I hope you had a happy Hanukkah.
Yes, had a happy Hanukkah.
Alex, I know it ended last week, right?
Yeah, last week. Yeah. Happy Yule to all of you, and
whatever other holidays are out there.
Yes, go get your gifts and set trees on fire. I don't know what you want to do.
Please don't set a tree on fire. That's not a good recommendation at all.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. All right, guys. See you on Sunday. Bye.
What a strange thing to say.